All right. So Brian Kelly has been making his rounds this week. He's been doing some local media hits. He's been going out recruiting. His staff has been out recruiting. I know that some of you saw Matt House in West Texas today. Frank Wilson's been out there doing some really good things as well. Really, really picking it up. Coach Lindsey, who has not even really been in Louisiana a lot because he's been out recruiting for LSU. But Brian Kelly is indeed making the rounds and going to media, going to schools, things like that. He was in Shreveport today. But there are a couple of things that Brian Kelly has said over the last week. A couple of them we've taken out, but none bigger than this. None bigger than this. And let me preface, I've said on this show multiple times and things about Jayden Daniels, specifically when we talk about him. Number one, I did not think Garrett Nussmeier was ready last year to lead you to win the SEC West. I think now that we have taken a step back, we've gotten out of all of that, we can say to ourselves, yeah, I think that Jayden was the right guy to win us the West this past season. I think, though, now, and I've said this before, Brian Kelly, I said this 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, and now that we start the big transition into football, we do this on the 10th of May every single year because usually it falls during the week, whatever, to make the push. We'll start bringing in guests. We'll start talking about teams around the SEC when it comes to football. But Brian Kelly has made it very clear that two quarterbacks are not going to play, even though both of them can start for you. Like it, love it, or hate it, the growth that we've seen from Garrett Nussmeier from Southern and 2 interceptions to what we saw from him against Georgia and Purdue is the light years. He's had a better offensive scheme around him. He's had better players around him because last time he really played, he just had 40 scholarship guys against Arkansas, and some of his receivers are out, and he was throwing to Jack Bash in the back of the end zone, and he's not even here anymore. Both of these guys can play. But Brian Kelly has vehemently come out and denied that he doesn't have to and he doesn't need to run a 2 QB system, which is interesting because I thought that they might do some of those things. And BK said that the best thing that's happened to Jayden Daniels has been that Garrett Nussmeier has been behind him this spring and going into the summer because they've really grown to love each other. They've really grown to be high competitors, and they're helping each other out on every single thing that they do. But Brian Kelly's still leaning into Jayden Daniels, the senior. And there are a couple things that I want to throw out here just so we don't forget. Last year, Jayden went 266 for 318 in those attempts. He threw for damn near 3,000 yards at 2,913. He had 17 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He also had 186 rushing attempts, 855 yards, 11 touchdowns. And by the way, that's not all the touchdowns he had. If you remember in the bowl game, he caught a receiving touchdown on the Philly special from Malik Neighbors. Last year, Jayden Daniels scored 29 touchdowns, 29 total touchdowns to 4 total turnovers. Now, as BK alluded to this week, and as we've alluded to, and I think everybody knows, the confidence that he has to gain at getting the ball down the field, we can talk about all the live long day. We're going to talk about all the live long day because you know, I know, the fans know, Florida State knows, everybody, Jayden knows. Jayden's he's going to talk about some of those things in, I think, near future. But nevertheless, he's already working on those things. What's interesting is that you had a quarterback that had 3,000 yards. Let's call it roughly almost 4,000 total yards last year and 29 total touchdowns. Jayden is going to be working on those things and pushing the ball down the field. But we forget so many times, man. We forget so many times about the clutch things that he did. You know, like the corner route to Mason Taylor in the back of the end zone. The runs that he had against Alabama. And he's going to need the weight that he's gained and the muscle that he's gaining. And you could tell that he's putting on that weight. Guys, Brian Kelly is calling him for getting the upper 20s of touchdown passes next year, which is interesting. Why is your goal and Jayden Daniels' goal to get up from passing touchdowns in the upper 20s when normally big-time Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, which he can really do, why wouldn't he say 35, 40? And look, let's not get it twisted. If he throws 35, 40 touchdowns, Brian Kelly ain't going to care about that part. He really wants him to do that. But it tells me this. They know who they have, and Jay knows who he is. Because they're not going to take away that running game that he has because he's so dynamic in doing it. Guys, he had 11 touchdowns. By the way, it's damn near leading the SEC, and it led every rusher damn near in all of not only just the SEC but the country. Some running backs that you think that were really great in the SEC last year, they were not as effective as Jayden Daniels was. But we forget so much that he was clutch. I went back today. I tweeted this. I went back today and said, hey, I'm going to go back and watch the Florida State game. Now, I watched the highlights. I didn't really break it down because I didn't feel like I needed to do that. I just wanted to refresh my memory. We talk about all the time with him about some of the bad things that he did. But, man, I get to the last offensive series against Florida State. Florida State runs that little pitch play. They fumble it. Mekhi Wingo is down there getting the ball, getting the fumble. You got 99 yards, but Jayden Daniels wouldn't be one of the problems that you would have. You got 99 problems, and Jayden Daniels wasn't one. Man, he was so electric. So electric. Boogie, woogie, woogie. In that drive, we forget how clutch he was. It's not his fault that the extra point got blocked. So then I was like, you know what? If you're on YouTube, you see the videos underneath it. So I go and watch Florida. And LSU was actually down early. Florida was popping LSU's defense in the mouth. And every time Jayden Daniels would respond, he would get a guy to jump off sides. He would hit Jeray Jenkins and Brian Thomas alike on both ends of the end zone. One on a fade route to the left, one on the fade route to the right. Would run the football effectively. LSU would get out there and really beat down on Florida. We forget about just how gigantic it was. What he did against Alabama, the running and the scrambling that he did, the design runs, the throws to Malik Neighbors on Eli Ricks, the throw that he would have to Jeray Jenkins late, the throw that he would have to Kayshon Boutte over the middle when it's 3rd and 13 and you needed 7. The hot read that he would make to John Emery in the flat and let John work and go and score. We forget the zone read with Josh Williams when he would bust it to the outside and go for 6. We forget the 2-point play with Mason Taylor on the motion in, motion out in the flat tutty. Well, not really tutty, but you get it, 2-point conversion. We would forget on a broken leg, damn near, not really, sprained ankle, really, really bad sprained ankle. But on that sprained ankle, he would have and go over for 200 yards passing the first half against Georgia. Guys, let's just be real. Him getting the punt blocked and the special teams miscues and Jack Besh having the ball bounce off his helmet for an interception, it's not all on Jayden. And you do remember that Garrett came in there and we saw the performance of your backup quarterback who did fantastic. I think Jayden Daniels is going to take that next step. And not only do I think that he's going to take that next step, I really do believe that there's a potential here there is a really strong potential here that he could lead you to a place that you want to get to. Guys, you know what I want right now? Do I want to win a national title? You're damn right I do. Do I want to win the West? Do I want to win the SEC? Yes and yes. I just want them to get the shot and the opportunity to get into that playoff. Because if you do that in year 2, if you get to the SEC championship game undefeated along with Georgia, or one loss along with Georgia, you have that ability to make that playoff. I think Jayden's going to do it, man, because there's so many things that he missed last year in the red zone throwing the ball that you can convert on. Guys, if he gets to 25 to 28 to even maybe at max 30 touchdown passes, and he runs the way that he runs effectively, we've seen him be clutch. It has not, guys, he's one of the more clutch players and clutch dudes that you have on your entire team. Like, now that you know what's going on in a game, I dare you after the show, go pop in that Bama game. Go watch those highlights. Don't watch the 13-minute clip. Watch that 26-minute clip. Guys, he threw for 3,000 yards, damn near 900 rushing yards. He had 17 touchdowns, 17 passing touchdowns, 11 running. And by the way, he didn't turn the ball over. He didn't turn the ball over. Maybe that changes because you're forcing the ball down the field. But what out of, some spring games aren't always created equal. I'm not going to ravel and dazzle over a spring game. But hot damn, man. I'm there, man. I am there with him. Because what has Jayden shown us this entire offseason? What has he shown? The only thing that he's shown is that he's highly dedicated. Guys, you don't put on muscle like that and you're sitting on your couch playing PlayStation, eating Cheetos and Puffs and Little Debbie zebra cakes. Like, you do not do what he's doing and not see everything that he's putting in to this offseason to not only get himself there, but to get you there. And by the way, you have a stud right behind him. Garrett has shown fantastic progression. Hopefully, they rub off on each other, pause. But hopefully they can rub off on their game a little bit. Maybe Garrett forces Jayden and says, Jayden, you got to let that rip right here, right now. You have the arm to do it. Do it. I hear some things inside that. I hear things inside that building. I told you about a text I got 3 weeks ago. It happened on the show. And we don't make enough of their relationship either. We don't make enough of it. I think it's something to be said that you have two dudes that are competing at the highest level. And you know what? You know what makes it great is when you have these young guys under Garrett and they think about transferring, he sat here, waited his turn, and did some good things.